So welcome back. As you can see, earlier I explained that I had my shape and I made my cones. I have now made all 6, as well as I hot glued a paper clip to one of the tops, so I know that my star piñata will have a place where I could hang it. So I have blown up a balloon, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be using tape to attach my cones to my balloon. I'm using that balloon as a ball. However, as you know, piñatas have to be hollow so we can put candy in there. And that being said, a balloon is a great way to do that, because once the balloon pops, it leaves an empty hollow space. So I'm starting with my first cone, and I'm just gonna tape it into place of where I want it. And I'm gonna work my way all the way around to create one of those stars with a round body. As you can see, I'm not using much tape, just kind of enough to hold it in place. This is a temporary fix before I do my paper mache process over it. So, all right. I'm gonna pre-rip some pieces of tape, so hopefully I can fly through this process. This is very similar to the other process of making your piñata. Right now, we're just in the phase where we're constructing our shape. So we have something to paper mache over before we, so we're gonna build our shape, we're gonna paper mache over it, and then we're gonna add our tissue paper to complete and finish up the piñata. But since I'm gonna have a point at each cone, I am going to be hanging some streamers from there as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, please stay tuned, because you will be able to see how we're going to do that. Okay, almost done. Last but not least, my cone on top. Okay, so I am officially done creating the shape of my piñata. I have my hook on top, so hopefully it looks pretty cool and symmetrical. So that being said, right now I'm gonna show you guys how to start the paper mache process, and then I'll pause the video, finish it up. So I have a bucket of starch here. You can see it, cool. I laid down some paper towels or extra paper or whatever, just to make my cleanup easier. And I also have a huge stack of cut up newspaper. You're going to notice that these strips of newspaper are much larger than the strips of newspaper we use to make the paper mache masks. The reason is, with a larger space, I can afford to have larger newspaper. So the process or steps to the paper mache for the piñatas is, you get one of your strips, you want to dip it in the starch, okay? Wipe off the excess, and I want to place it. As you can see, I'm kind of taking my time. I'm laying it down to make sure that there's no gaps or anything. You do want to layer up the mache when you put it down. So dip, wipe, lay it down, dip, wipe, lay it down, so pretty standard. Dip, wipe off excess, lay it down, and then you'll notice I kind of massage it down to keep the shape that I constructed. If something's standing up and it's kind of like in the way, rip it, apply it, push it down, whatever. But if you let it stand there while it dries, it's going to stand up hard, because this starch is going to act as our adhesive, as our glue. So if you leave it that way, it will dry that way. So dip, wipe, and I lay it down. A couple things before I continue this process and then we jump into the next step. You're gonna notice when you do the paper mache process, you are gonna wanna do about 4 layers of it. You do wanna change the direction you do it as well. Don't keep it directly on top of each other. Change up the direction and make sure you cover everything. When it's completely dry, we'll be back. All right, welcome. So I'm starting to layer up my piñata. But before I start anything, what I'd like to do is show you how to add streamers to the ends of your piñatas. So I've already pre-cut some long pieces of tissue paper. I'm gonna make sure, I'm gonna use 2 of each color, so I don't need that third. And I'm using a glue stick as my glue, and I'm just gonna be laying this down and attaching it like that, about 2 inches out. The reason I'm doing it this way is because when I come in and lay down my tissue paper, it's gonna overlap this to kind of lock it in place. So I'm just doing 2 streamers at the end of each cone. And as you can see, I'm compressing it, and so I'll have some fun streamers hanging off my piñata. All right, welcome back to video 2, style 2 of the piñata. So this is where we're building the round piñata. So I have my piñata that I built with the cones. The only thing I have done since I turned the video off is I got a needle tool, and I just dug it into my piñata, which I'll show you now, and I popped the balloon, and I heard all the air escaping. So now the only thing in there is like a deflated balloon. And then the second thing I did was I just gave it 1 coat all the way through, because my objective is to cover this whole piñata with the tissue paper fringe. However, if I skip an area, or it doesn't come out as perfect as I'd like it to, at least it's uniform and not just raw and exposed newspaper. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the opportunity to show you how we're going to attach, or cut as well as attach the tissue paper to have the fringe go around our piñata. Obviously, if you conducted a Google search or a Pinterest search, you saw that most piñatas, regardless of flat or round style, that they have the fringe on it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm cutting 2 pieces of tissue paper at the same time because I want to maximize my time. And I could do multiple cuts at once because this is a thin tissue paper. So I have 2 pieces of tissue paper. I'm going to be rolling these in about 2 inches. Because this is a smaller size piñata, I'm going to try to add more fringe to make it look neater and better. So I'm rolling this up about 2 inches wide, maybe 1.5 inches, but maybe 2, somewhere in there. All right. You can see that every time I roll it, I am compressing it down. I want it to lay as flat as possible so my cuts are clean. However, I would like to inform you, if your cuts aren't perfect, that's okay, because this is tissue paper and we are going to be overlapping it. So that being said, if you mess up a cut, maybe you need to throw 1 piece away, but you don't need to throw the whole stack away. So I have my tissue paper rolled and my pair of scissors handy. I'm kind of just opening it up and seeing so I can cut the seam in which I folded. This is gonna give me just long strips of that tissue paper. Okay, so I have one cut, so now I have a V. Obviously the random ones are already gonna start coming off, hopefully. Okay. Okay. All right. And I kind of keep it bent so I can keep that same line that I already folded. And I'm gonna cut the second seam. So now I have multiple tissue papers. So I'm gonna keep it stacked, and actually, I'm gonna put it off to the side. I wanna show you, there are a couple different styles of fringe that we can cut for our piñatas. So I'm gonna take one of these strips as sacrifice to show you the couple different ways in which we could do this. So I'm just kind of ripping them into different sections. So one style that we can cut our piñatas, which is the style I'm probably going to be using for this project, is we want like that really thin hair, kind of like grass style. So what I'm doing is I'm coming through with my scissors and I'm cutting very thin lines. As you can also see, I'm not cutting it all the way. So I'm cutting it on this side, but not on the top, because we are going to need a section that's attached. So we do have a way to use an adhesive and attach it to our piñata project. So I'm cutting this all the way up. All right, that's more than enough for you to get an idea. So here's the fringe style, as you can see. It's kind of fun. A second style that we could use for our piñata, I knew there was two. Second style that we could use for our piñata is, some people like to do the wider, like 1-inch ones. So as you can see, I'm almost cutting all the way to the top, but not quite. And I've done piñatas in this style. I actually really do like it. And as we attach them to our project, they do kind of curl and wave in the winds, and it is a fun one, kind of like a little party streamer. So there's a second style. And a third style that we could do is, if we take our piece of tissue paper and we fold it in half, okay, and on the side that is folded, if you kind of cut little reliefs into the tissue paper, but I'm not cutting all the way. Again, I need a place where I could attach it, okay? And as you saw, I have round cones on my piñata, so if I attach one section towards the top as well as the bottom section, and it kind of curves, it creates these little like petals and leaves, you know, once it's open, like that. So I can have like those kind of curls around my piñata. So there's another style we could do. Honestly, the styles are endless. Those are just 3 ways that I'm gonna show you right now. I'm gonna choose to use the hairstyle like I already mentioned. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do that, but because I like to maximize my time, I'm gonna do it in a larger quantity. So I'm keeping my tissue paper lined up, okay? All right, so I'm kind of making sure it's all level with each other. And then I like to start at the top personally. And I'm choosing the first style I showed you, the small hair. So I'm gonna be coming through and I'm cutting my piñata, the tissue paper, almost to the top, but not quite. So I'm gonna do this all the way down. I did it close to the video, and I'm gonna do it where it's comfortable, back here. Again, it is crucial and important. You don't want tiny little pieces of tissue paper you have to attach, and we don't want to waste the tissue paper, so do not cut it all the way. It's not really necessary, and it just makes your job much, much harder to attach 10,000 little pieces. again, I'm doing a lot of pieces at once because it's tissue paper. It's a very thin paper, so therefore it's super easy to cut multiple at a time. And as well, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing a mermaid, you might want to stick with green or purple or blues tissue paper. I do have an array of different colors. If you want to mix up your colors, light greens, dark greens, light greens, dark greens, that is available as well. So I'd also like to say, if you cut more tissue paper than you need and you have leftover strips of tissue paper, please save it. I will do the same if I have extra as well, so other students can use it, but also we're just not wasting materials. So there it is, all cut and pretty. I am going to be alternating my colors from an orange to a yellow. I'm sorry, like a goldish to a yellow. So now I'm going to take the time to show you how we're going to attach these fringes one by one to our piñata. So here's my piñata, okay? I have my hook already hot glued on the top. I'm going to advise that you start attaching at the bottom. So I'm going to put this guy up, and this is the corner in which I'm starting. Can you see it in the video? Yes, you can. Okay. What we're going to use as an adhesive is glue sticks. It works really well for some reason, even though glue sticks are a little weak. When it reacts with the paint and the starch that's already on it, it bonds real good. So it's a cheap way to attach it on, and plus this is a project we're gonna break. So for my Art 2 class, my advice is when you have your piñata ready, what I'm going to recommend is to just kind of rub it down with glue everywhere in small sections, because obviously the glue's gonna dry by the time you get there. And I'm gonna start with gold first. And fortunately, because my piñata's round, I can kind of curl this around. I don't have to like keep cutting. Okay, I could do this. There it is. So one piece. I'm starting at the flat part, and I'm going to be attaching that to my piñata and compressing it into the glue. And I'm just gonna curl it around until I run out. As you can see, these fringes are already sticking off and flowing and gorgeous. So I'm just winding it around into the glue. And my last bit of advice is make sure you compress it so that glue actually holds that tissue paper. And then I'm switching colors. Okay. I'm gonna make sure I have more adhesive. One thing I would like to bring to your attention is I am just curling the part of the tissue paper that is not cut. And as I'm doing that, oh, there's two here. Aha. As I'm doing this, I'm using the fringe to cover up the part that I just glued. So I'm really only gluing right next to each other, the flat part to the flat part to the flat part. And that fringe is an extra that's covering up the section in which I'm gluing. This is gonna make it look more official, more pretty. I'm not leaving any huge gaps in my piñata. So this is a section I just glued down. I'm gonna take the new section and I'm gonna lay it right over it. So that fringe covers up the part I just glued. So it's kind of just layering on top of each other over and over and over and over again. Cool. And again, I'm compressing it down to make sure that it sticks. And I'm gonna continue this process, and we'll come back when the piñata is just about done. I am gonna continue alternating my colors, so we'll be back. All right, welcome. So I have officially finished the piñata with the different color streamers all the way around. So yay, it's fun, it looks awesome. Hopefully you agree. The very last thing that I need to do is cut a hole. So I have a opening in order to put candy in. So as you can see, my hook is up here. Hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to be cutting my hole, or the access point to put candy in, towards the top. So therefore when my piñata is hanging, candy doesn't fall out. So I just have an X-Acto knife, and I'm gonna be cutting into my cardboard cone. I'm just kind of, so I jab the knife in just kind of to create a hole, and I'm just kind of sawing it back and forth. So I'm cutting along the cone, and I'm just going to cut 2 lines down on either side of the incision I already made, and then bend it, because the cardboard will in fact bend a little bit. As well as the mache itself. So I have one. Now I'm cutting a second. And of course I made sure that it was completely dry, so I'm not, you know, fighting or pulling up the tissue paper or anything like that. So I've cut, I'm just basically pushing the piñata in, and I'm digging my fingers in that hole that I cut, and I'm gonna be bending that cardboard just slightly. So I now have a hole that I can put candy in, but again, if I tuck this piece of cardboard back down, it hides. So that's it, it's official. My piñata is completely done. It is fun, it is colorful. I hope you enjoyed this demo.